When the teachers of the law asked Jesus which of the commandments is the most important, Jesus answered them saying this. The most important one is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. The second is this. Love your neighbour as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. In other words, get these two right, and every other God-given commandment for society, for communities to work well together and thrive will naturally follow. I love the church. Jesus loves his church with all our faults, with all our failings, and at times even stupidity, let's face it. It's still the hope for the pandemic-riddled world. And it's the only thing he's coming back for, you and me. But here's the thing. The church is not great at the greatest commandment. In the terms of the heart, we're not as open or pure or perhaps compassionate as we should be. And that's bad news, folks. But we can become part of the solution. We can change the face of Christianity, and it's going to need more than a facelift, more than a service time change or a program addition. It starts with a change of heart in you and me. The church has prayed for revival for centuries, decades, and revival starts in me, in you, in the place of our heart, in our desires for more of God, to be of more of use to God than we are to the world. A conscious decision to follow better than ever before. A shift from being good church members to disciples who make disciples. From people who organise Jesus around their lives to people who realise that they are God's delivery system of hope and healing to a hurting world, and daily decide to organise life around Jesus. So here's a question for you. What's stopping you from wholeheartedly following Jesus, surrendering to Jesus, obeying Jesus with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength? Recently, we were at our conference. A guy called Duncan Clark, one of our national leaders, mentioned the story found in 2 Samuel 7 about King David, who was the king at the time. He was doing well. He's in his prime. His nation is safe. He's ambitious for God, and to show his appreciation of God, he wants to build God a temple, a home for God. He shares his heart with his advisor Nathan, and Nathan says, look, David, whatever you do it wholeheartedly. Great advice. And then a little later, David has to put down his plans because God makes it quite clear to him that he's got no need for a home, a temple. God has actually got plans to build David something instead. And so in verse 18 of 2 Samuel 7, this is where everything in David pivots. Everything changes. His plans, his busyness has to give way to something far more important. It says this: King David sat before the Lord. He surrenders his day, his hopes, his dreams, his plans to God. He abdicates his royal authority to God's authority, and he humbly sits down before God. For some of us, double backing on our declared plans would be a real kick to the pride, wouldn't it? An embarrassment. For others of us who love to make things happen, we love to keep busy, obliterate the next to-do list by the end of the day, just sitting down before God can be sometimes the hardest thing to do. It's the thing we put off each day. But what's the condition of your heart? Because those two things are intrinsically linked. You and I can spend time with God throughout the day. We can notice his presence throughout the day. But there is something about sitting down before God. I did an IQ test on Facebook the other week. I'm clearly not the sharpest tool in the shed, but the Bible suggests that life is more than a collection of mind-based decisions, more than just collecting knowledge. There's two things called emotional intelligence, EQ, and spiritual intelligence, SQ, and they're really vital. It's suggested that people actually with higher EQ and SQ go further in life than those with just simply high intelligence. Fantastic, folks. There's hope for me yet. Love the Lord, your God, with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The heart. We all know that it's a crucial pump that incredibly keeps us alive. But throughout the Bible, it is also central to who we are and why we do what we do. So what's your self-diagnosis today? What's pulling you away from following Jesus wholeheartedly, from living your Christian life wholeheartedly, with sincere commitment, complete sincerity and commitment? The verse from Proverbs 4:23 comes immediately to mind for me. It says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything else you do flows from it. In Matthew 15:18, Jesus says, the things that come out of a person's mouth start from the heart. They come from the heart. So let's just for a few moments take a spiritual checkup, folks. What's stopping you sitting before the Lord, spending time on what we all know is the most important and biggest privilege of our day? Perhaps it's a hurried heart. You know, folks, the busier we are, the more we need to spend those times sat before God. Are we spreading ourselves too thin? Has Netflix box sets, another hour of TV debate about England's football squad lineup before the start of the game, or losing another 20 minutes mindlessly scrolling down our social media on our phones, knocked us off balance, filled our day? You know, digital distractions, pings from every phone and tablet echoing around the house draw me away so easily. And before I know it, I'm watching people I've never met fall over, cook things that I'll never want to cook, clean things I'll never want to clean that way, ever. I've noticed that the less I have filled the day, the more margins that I have in my finances and free time, the more I am available to see God at work in me and through me. Jesus had a day. He had plans, but he made the time, had the energy, the margin, if you like, the connectedness to the Spirit to capture the moment, the availability to see, the Samaritan woman who came to the well, and he ministered to her. Recently for me, it was a chap who lives near the church who just needed someone to listen to him. I'm in the car at the front of church, just about to drive away. But you should have seen his face when I mentioned that there was a reason why he'd survived COVID, that he'd survived 2 car accidents this year, and that Jesus loved him so much. I hadn't got so little time in my day that I couldn't spend 10 or 15 minutes giving this man my full attention. Recently for me was the lady who came to check our gas tank, who just unburdened herself and was happy for me to pray for her and wanted information about the Alpha course online. I am praying, folks, that those 2 people go on to more encounters with other Christians who've have the time to add just another jigsaw piece moment to their journey to the cross. So is it a hurried heart today? You just need to slow down. Make the time to sit down before the Lord. Perhaps it's a hurting heart. Ignoring hurts, hiding hurts from him never works. He sees, he knows, he loves you enough to encourage you to forgive as he has forgiven you. Bitterness, unforgiveness, offences harboured injure us so much, weigh us down mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Is there someone you need to forgive? Something you need to let go of, or come to the point where you can pray for them as part of that healing, the moving forward process. Perhaps you're grieving today. Perhaps you carry many a why, God? And sitting in the quietness, following Jesus isn't a priority because you've just got used to carrying these things. But not addressing them creates a wedge in your relationship with him. You know what it's like when people avoid you. Scoot all over the place, avoid eye contact, and sometimes we can do the same with God. Perhaps we've slowly convinced ourselves that talking to Jesus about those things and allowing the Spirit to touch our lives, to listen to him, to speak to us, to surrender those things to him sounds like we're weak or vulnerable. Don't fall for it, folks. There is strength, there is freedom to be found when we sit and talk to him and sense the Father's embrace once again. But it takes time. It takes discipline to get to that point where we really believe and know the fruit of sitting down with him each day. Perhaps it's a harassed heart. Perhaps your anxiety levels, for whatever reason, shot through the roof lately. The ongoing cloud and the knock-on effects of the pandemic can just be so wearying, can't they? But whatever fills your mind with worry today, the kids, the grandkids, the bills, the redundancy, the work colleagues, the exam, Peter in turn and in time learned to cast all anxieties on Jesus because he cares for you. He says in 1 Peter 5:7. Jesus invites you to sit down, spend a moment today again and do the same. Speak it out, cry it out, write it out as a prayer. He has bigger shoulders than you. He longs to take the burden, the weight of your hurried, hurting or harassed heart and bring focus, pace, direction, discipline, healing, words of wisdom to you as you follow him. Showing my stepdaughter Becky how to clean a toilet a while ago, and then giving her the brush to do it was the most sad and sorry thing I've ever witnessed in my whole life. It revealed the most incredible example of someone doing something so half-heartedly that I'd ever seen. You've heard the phrase, if it's worth doing well, do it yourself. Or if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. Well, folks, that wasn't it. I don't like cleaning either. There are parts of my daily job that I don't like doing. It's not the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning, and the song "Oh What a Beautiful Morning" running through my mind just does not happen. But there are some things in life that just have to be done, and half-heartedness really doesn't help. You see, it's so easy to drift, to get distracted, to prioritise everything and everyone else. We'll even call it an honourable title like loyalty to the firm, like always being available and willing, like doing anything for anybody. And it sounds great, and to a degree it is. But when we're boundaryless, unable to say a sensitively or a wise no, we allow the daftness and unkindness of people, money and stuff to rob us of what really matters, and suddenly we wonder why we've become so half-hearted, so harassed in our discipleship to boot. Sometimes we can get half-hearted. Sometimes we can get hard-hearted. Over the last 18 months, I'd be lying to you if the thought of quitting being a pastor hadn't crossed my mind for a brief moment on a bad week. I momentarily dreamt of driving a tractor, shutting the cab door at the end of the day and going home. Living off-grid, working the tills of Asda, compartmentalising my life and my working life to the ends of shifts and thinking nothing more of it till the next one. Moments of escapism amongst the frustrations, the self-doubt, the weariness of leading through a pandemic. I pray for my colleagues across the different streams of church movements who even today can't shake that desire to give up. Church vicars, pastors, youth workers, volunteers, all feeling the pressure. And it's so easy to slip into half-heartedness. So easy to be obsessed with the leading, the planning, the admin, the decisions, other people's problems, and forget the absolute privilege and honour of the calling that Jesus has placed on our lives, on your life, to simply make following relationship the priority. So easy to cut out what I've heard called recently strategic sitting or practicing the pause with Jesus every day and staying intent on becoming disciples who make disciples. Throughout the Bible, Samuel, David, Paul, Isaiah, Jesus, they all warn us about the drift of our hearts. The writer of Hebrews says this: today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Folks, can I be really honest with you? I've met enough Christians in my time to put me off Jesus, full stop. I could have easily let my heart become so hard towards the Spirit and Christianity because of the experience of people I've had. People who are not perfect, people who are loved, accepted, forgiven, people who are walking as I do, a road that isn't easy. But if God accepts us, then I need to work on my heart with regard to that. I can go along so judgmentally, thinking if that is church, if that's what church looks like, if that's what a Christian life looks like, an attitude looks like, you can shove it. Believe you me, I know it's so easy just to do church, to do routine, to attend it once a week, once a month, or on Zoom. From a pastor's perspective, it's so easy to just do it as a profession. On the surface, we can look good Christians, but scratch beneath the surface, and there's this disconnection from Jesus, a disconnection from the awe and the wonder of his majesty, the honour and of being able to spend time with him each day. And slowly we can disassociate from his body, the church, and the mission that he has invited us to be an intrinsic part of. The one thing that matters, the one thing that carries eternal value. No matter the state of your heart today, whether hurried, hurting, harassed, half-hearted or hardened, there is no one more approachable than Jesus. The whole Bible, from the first verse to the last, points to Jesus, the love of the Father. It tells us everything we need to know about him. But in Matthew 11, Jesus reveals a little bit more. And here's what Jesus says about who he is in his own words. He says, I'm gentle and I'm lowly in heart. Folks, Jesus invites you and I to a wholehearted faith and lifestyle of both sitting down as well as standing up and doing, serving, and getting on with the day. Sitting down each day, not in laziness, not even in so-called me time, but wholeheartedly sitting at the feet of Jesus where the real hard action begins to take place. Sitting with a coffee, sitting with an open Bible, an open heart, open hands, befriending the silence rather than avoiding it, and being at ease with what we find there. Allowing our deepest fears and darkest thoughts to be spoken there, to rise there. Listening and surrendering our plans to his, aligning our plans, our lives to his. Instead of relying on an encounter with him or years ago or months ago even to get us through each day, we have an opportunity to encounter him and be transformed by him every single moment of the day. A rhythm of sitting down and standing up, standing out, standing in the gap, serving. You and I are God's only delivery system of the good news, of life-changing prayer and miracles. Bethel, our heart is that we are equipped and engaged for this coming season, that more than ever we'll become more wholehearted disciples who are discipling others, sharing our faith simply, sensitively, yet powerfully through the Spirit of God. People who wholeheartedly know that the moment we are in, good or bad or indifferent, doesn't pause the mission we're on. People who wholeheartedly can say, here I am, send me to this lost pandemic world. God bless you folks. Have a great day.